Welcome to Accounting High.
We're like, okay, we need to hire somebody. Typically, we want to make sure that we have enough cash reserves to hire this person. In a previous episode, I think it was our How to Pay Yourself as an S Corp Owner episode, we talked about this zero line, as you call it.
Yeah.
And so the idea is go look at your expenses, your average expenses each month, and choose a cash reserve number between like 2 to 4 months of expenses that you want to keep in the bank account. So if you have $100,000 of expenses every month, choose, you want to keep between $200,000 and $400,000 in the bank. Now, if you're going to hire somebody, you need to recalibrate that number, assuming that their additional salary, their additional monthly costs is in that monthly expense, right? So now instead of $100,000 a month of expenses, you have $110,000. So let's build up our cash reserves a little bit to cover a couple months of their salary in case something goes wrong.
Check out the Cashflow Show. We discuss topics like getting paid on time, profitability, and managing your bottom line, payroll best practices, the best apps to use, and cash flow forecasting tools. So if you're a small business owner, your help's right around the corner. Fret not. Tune in as Scott and Nikole help you reach your goals on the Cashflow Show. The Cashflow Show. Listen and learn. We'll show you how to pay yourself on what your business earns. With Nikole and OKR.
What up, Nix?
Hey, Scott. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah, morning, afternoon. Sometimes at night I'll be laying in my bed and I can't sleep. And then this song just goes on in my head and I know all the words and I just sing the whole thing and then slowly drift away into sweet, sweet slumber.
It's a very peaceful song.
Yeah. What's up? What are we talking about today? So today we're not talking about sleeping. We're not going to put the audience to sleep either. We're going to talk about hiring again. And this is like a little bit of part 2, but with a twist.
Yeah. So part 1, we talked about org structure and figuring out who you need to hire. So now that you figured out who you need to hire, we are going to figure out, can you afford to hire this person? So I think like even to this day, I don't know about you, Scotty, but when I hire an employee, I always have the same kind of emotions, mix of emotions of excitement of this new person coming on, but then also fear to make sure that our revenue can sustain a new person. And then also getting this person ramped up and trained is always extra work. So there's always this mixture of emotions. And so what I want to do in this episode is at least take the emotion we feel around, can we actually afford to hire this person? How is that going to impact my cash flow out of it so that we can focus on all of the other stuff and like getting them on board and trained?
I think for a business owner, fear is usually that number one driver of why we don't do something too, or why we make certain decisions out of fear too. And if we're afraid of the unknowns and we don't know how things may go in the future, then we may not make that decision or make that hire. So how can we sort of shine a light on those fears for our listeners, for our business owners that are paying attention to this?
If you want to scale your business and grow it, you will get to the point where you need to hire somebody, so it doesn't depend on you anymore. So we're going to walk through 4 steps to go through when you're considering hiring a new employee. So the first step is going to be to understand the true costs of an employee. And so we talked about this a little bit in our payroll pitfalls episode, where we talked about the cost of an employee versus a contractor. So when we hire a new employee, as we know, Scott, it's not just the cost of their salary. So if we pay someone $100,000 a year, they don't cost $100,000 a year. We also have to consider payroll taxes. We have to consider for paying them benefits. We've also got, usually for a new employee, they probably have some equipment that you need to buy for them, additional software subscription, all of those things that end up adding on more overhead for your business.
There's a whole bunch of baggage that comes with every employee. If you have health insurance, then that's a whole nother side of the bill too, of course. So I'm kind of going through a little bit of that right now too, thinking about who our next hire is going to be. And I don't know if I can afford that person. So this is a great couple of phases that I need to go through, or if I should afford to hire that person. Because I think in some cases you will need to dip into some reserves before you fill that backload, right? So we've got to make sure that next phase here is to check your reserves and to make sure you're able to. All right, go ahead.
I was going to say, actually, you know what? I think I did this out of order. So last episode, we talked about who. So maybe we start with the who, because the way we think about this is a little bit different, because we've got two different types of people at our business. We have people who are producing revenue. So for us, that's our accountants, right? They're doing billable work. If we hire a new employee, we can make more revenue. Then there's operations people. So I just hired a new COO. Now she's primarily going to be more internal facing. She's not going to be driving a lot of revenue. So that's a different type of hire, and that impacts our business different. Maybe we just go through your example of who you're considering to hire. Is that somebody that's client facing?
It would be, yeah. It would be purely a revenue play. I got somebody that approached me, a fractional CFO that worked for one of our clients, and she's looking for more work. She does controllership work mostly. She's looking for some more work, possibly full-time or contract. And I said, well, perfect. We got a ton of clients we can market those services to, and there's a lot we can offer. So maybe we can batch you up with 5 clients or something like that, and now we have another arm of our business here.
Okay, so this is interesting. This is actually a third type of employee. I would say operating staff, revenue producing for a service you're already delivering, and then hiring somebody for a service you want to deliver. I've done what you're thinking about right now, and so
you're going to warn me against it. This is just an interesting opportunity.
So there's an upsell opportunity, right? You have a portfolio of 100 clients, and maybe 10% of them or 20% of them would be interested in using her services, more high-level controller, CFO type services. So for you, right, if you hire this person, there's going to be a period of time where she's not going to be generating any revenue. And so you're making a bet that you can go out and, after you hire her, go out and talk to your customers and pitch them on this new service. Is that your plan?
That's the plan.
Okay. What I would do if I would do it again is I would go talk to my customers and see if I could sell them that service before I hired that person.
That sounds like a great idea. That sounds like something more up my alley anyway. I would like it lined up before and this is a perfect time, right around the end of tax season. You've got touch points with almost every client already. So things are in the early phases of the year. We could potentially line up a couple clients on this if I made an effort and started talking to people. So potentially, that could be the solution.
And if they don't have it right now, it's not like they're in a rush, right? You could send out an email, get some initial interest, and then let's say 20% of your clients respond. Then you go talk to them and you can pre-sell, say, hey, starting in June, right now it's April, starting in June, we're going to start offering the service, and even get some of those people in contract. Then you've already got revenue contracted before you go hire that, make the investment in that person. The challenge we had is I did it wrong, right? I hired the CFO, then I tried to go upsell our existing clients, and it didn't end up working out at that time.
Okay. Well, this is great advice. So let's continue this path of advice for the other types of employees. So in that case, you would suggest that I go build out the service line first before hiring, and that we can do internally. What about if you're hiring somebody for a service line that you already service and things that you already do for clients, right?
Typically, when you hire somebody, that's delivering services because your existing team is at capacity. So you've got more demand than your team can currently handle. So a first step in my mind would be to start thinking about, I know what your team does this, right? You guys have a wait list. So it's figuring out, is this a seasonality?
And the wait list was just the plug to keep things going and to not have to rock the boat or have to hire anybody. So that was just to say, okay, everything's good. Let's just go on a wait list. I think that's the last resort. Companies probably shouldn't do that. I wouldn't suggest it.
Well, listen. So my point with that is figuring out, is it a seasonality wait list or is it an ongoing wait list?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if it's just like everybody comes in December because they all finally got their together to file their taxes. But then after February, you're going to be back to normal capacity, then that's different, right? But if you're always finding that you have this wait list, then that means that you have more demand than you have capacity. So our next thing that we could do before we go hire somebody might be, maybe we go, depending on what type of business you want to grow. If you want to grow quickly, yes, we can go hire more people, but we might want to raise our prices first. We might want to go to our bottom performing clients, raise those prices, and then maybe some of our clients leave, right? So we've created more capacity for our existing team. We squeezed all the juice out of our current clients, as you like to say.
Yep. Don't leave any meat on the bone there.
Exactly. Okay. So once we've right-sized our pricing, we still have demand. And so we're at the point where we're like, okay, we need to hire somebody. Typically, we want to make sure that we have enough cash reserves to hire this person. In a previous episode, I think it was our How to Pay Yourself as an S Corp Owner episode, we talked about this zero line, as you call it.
Yeah.
And so the idea is go look at your expenses, your average expenses each month, and choose a cash reserve number between like 2 to 4 months of expenses that you want to keep in the bank account. So if you have $100,000 of expenses every month, choose, you want to keep between $200,000 and $400,000 in the bank. Now, if you're going to hire somebody, you need to recalibrate that number, assuming that their additional salary, their additional monthly cost is in that monthly expense, right? So now instead of $100,000 a month of expenses, you have $110,000. So let's build up our cash reserves a little bit to cover a couple months of their salary in case something goes wrong. So once we've done that, we're feeling good about our cash. The other thing to consider here is our pipeline. So in your case, you have a wait list, right? Which is you guys have a pretty predictable pipeline. There are certain businesses that have extreme volatility in their revenue.
Yeah.
And that's when things get really challenging.
And give me some examples of that, of businesses, service businesses that have the volatility.
Yeah. So part of this episode was inspired by a client that I'm going to talk to next week. So it's his first employee that he's hiring, and he does like really cool, big art exhibits. So he did for the NFL, he created these Madden awards for out of marble. So he gets commissioned to do these really cool art projects. But so he can go in these valleys where he has no work, and then all of a sudden he'll get a $200,000 project. $300,000 project. So he was wanting to hire an office manager. He also invested in an office, right? So not an office, but what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a showroom. So that's a fixed monthly expense that he's having to pay. But now he can host people there, and that's kind of like a marketing thing. So his situation also, if you think about creative agencies or anybody doing big projects, your revenue can have a lot of peaks and valleys. So it's not as easy as our business where we have recurring revenue. So my first advice, if there's a way you can get a recurring revenue in some component of your business, that's always ideal, right? But if you're in a situation where that's just not possible, then we need to create control over our pipeline.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we need a predictable way to get more revenue in the door if we need to. And that could be usually when you're first starting out, you're networking, but ideally you're building an email list, you're doing things on social media. And then if you hire this person, the idea is you can spend more time doing those things. So you're not usually your first hire is you're moving out of doing the client work, and then you're bringing this person in to deliver the work. But that means you can go do more marketing, you can do more biz dev, you can do more sales, you can send out more emails. So as long as you feel hey, it's usually what happens when we're delivering our work ourselves when we first start our business is we're not spending time doing biz dev. So our pipeline isn't very hot. It's pretty dry. As soon as you hire that person, that allows you to have more control. So as long as you're clear and you're confident that I know if I have more time to spend in these areas, I can bring on more revenue. That's a good place to start.
Yeah. Well, I love what you were saying there about creating that capacity. There's a lot of ways that we can create capacity. And usually when you feel like you need to hire, sometimes you may not be able to afford it. And sometimes you may not even need it anyway. So
now we've decided, okay, I'm going to hire this person, or we're still evaluating, right? So we want to know what the impact is to our P&L, our profit. So going back to those different types, we got revenue producing versus administrative staff that we're hiring. So let's go first through an example of a revenue producing person. So let's say we've got typically, right, like it takes probably 90 days realistically for a revenue producing person to get up to speed to be actually managing a full portfolio of clients.
Yeah, at least for sure.
And when I say at full capacity, I would say like 80% or more of their time should be spent on client work.
Yeah, you don't get them there in the first few months because you're just getting them up to speed. You're training them. You're trying to backfill their client load too, if you need to do that, and then onboarding and everything else.
Yeah. And then you have the initial costs again of like getting them new equipment and all that. So let's just say that, walk through an example here. If we hire somebody and they cost $5,000 a month all in, which would be pretty inexpensive, that would be nice. So with payroll taxes, benefits, all of that, they're $5,000 a month.
Hey, hire in the Philippines, you can definitely get away with that.
Yeah, you can get a few of them. Yeah, exactly. And I've said in the past that typically we want whatever the cost is of a person, we want to generate 3 times that in revenue at least.
Mm-hmm.
So this $5,000 a month person should generate $15,000 in revenue when they're fully onboarded, have a full portfolio of clients that they're managing. So,
but you need to pad those first 3 months, because those first 3 months, you're not going to have anything coming in some cases.
Right. So let's say it takes 3 months and they don't generate any revenue, then you're out basically $5,000 a month. But realistically, it's probably going to be a phase up, right? So let's say month 1, you get no new, they manage no new revenue and you pay them $5,000. Well, you've lost $5,000 plus whatever their equipment, et cetera, was in month 1.
Getting everybody and preparing everybody for the burden of hiring somebody. This is a big deal, and this is a lot that's coming out of the reserves right now. So
Yes.
This is where people might start to stress out. Like, oh wow, I just hired this person, and then like just a little thing happens, and they're tempted to just say, "Oh, forget it. Like I can't keep going with this. I just lost $5,000 last month." But continue. I want to keep going with the story. It's just like being in the moment there. Some people might feel drastic and pull the ripcord.
Yeah. And I know for some reason, whenever I hire somebody, we lose a big client. Like the timing always works out. And so it's like, okay, this person costs $10,000 plus I just lost a $10,000 client. Now I have a $20,000 swing in my business. Like it always happens for some reason. There's risk.
It tests you in the most, inopportune times.
But let's assume that our revenue is stable here. So first month, you're going to cash flow. You're going to burn $5,000 because they cost $5,000 that month and you made no new revenue. Now, by month 2, let's say...
And you could have spent money on recruiting and other things too up front.
Yeah.
So you've already
You're in the hole here. You're in the hole. Let's say you're in the hole here $10,000 so far. But then by month 2... let's say they've been able to cover their costs. So they're managing $5,000 of revenue. They cost $5,000. So you're breaking even. So you're $10,000 in the hole so far. Then by month 3, they're generating $10,000 of revenue. They cost you $5,000. So you've made $5,000. So now you're in the hole, only $5,000. And then by month 4, they're managing all the full $15,000 a month that you were planning on them managing. And so now you've made $10,000 in perpetuity a month on this person. In perpetuity.
That's the other important thing, right? As long as everything is going well and you keep those clients and everybody stays happy, you're churning cash now.
So by month 4, you've made your money back and now you have a $10,000 extra that you're making each month.
So it's worth it. It's worth the investment. It's worth the time. You just have to be prepared for that. And then it's not so scary. Yeah, none of that seems that it's so scary. And the payoff is huge right there of all that investment.
Right. Well, think about where you can invest your money. You can invest your money in the market. You can invest your money in real estate. This is just another type of investment where you can put your cash, but you're going to get much more return probably than putting it elsewhere.
You're investing money in your time too, because that person's going to take things off of your plate inevitably. Like anytime you hire somebody, it takes a burden off of the other people that are around them, surrounding them too, or it should be. but you have to invest a lot of that time in the beginning to get them onboarded and to get everything ready. It's going to be investing time and money to get the return of money and time on the back end of that.
Yeah.
More money, more time, more freedom.
Cool. So hopefully you can get there. I mean, that's how you scale a business, right?
Yeah. And that's the sweetest part. Now let's talk about something that nobody likes to handle, is this administrative stuff. Like that's always the excess, and there's always the simple tasks, the things that have to get done.
Yeah. So when you hire somebody that's not revenue producing, it's kind of like when you have to get new tires. It's just not very fun, but it's a cost of doing business.
It's cost of staying on the road. Yeah.
It's cost of staying on the road,
Keep
right?
burning rubber. Yeah.
So
keep burning rubber.
Your admin staff are the wheels of the car, and they're keeping everything moving forward.
There we go.
There we go. That's a good analogy.
It's a much better car analogy than my first one from the first episode. That was terrible.
The cogs in the wheel. Your admin staff.
But this is a shout out to the first episode, though. This is another bridge to that first episode, right? We're bringing the car back because we're talking about the 50, 30, 20.
We are. We're going back to that. So our OG. So admin staff, which is also could be called your overhead. As a reminder, this is your salary as the owner. If you have a director of operations, IT, support, marketing, sales, accounting, all of the things that help you run your business, but aren't necessarily delivering revenue. If we go back to the 50, 30, 20 rule, right? And when we were just talking about your delivery staff, their cost should be no more than 50% of your revenue. And then our overhead cost should be no more than 30% of our revenue. So we basically have 30% of our revenue to spend on your admin staff. So typically when you first start a service business, you, the owner, delivering the work, then you hire a revenue producing staff. Maybe you hire 2 revenue producing staff. And then after a while, you're like, man, I'm running around with like a chicken with my head cut off. I'm moving from sales to going to this business development meeting to like helping the team deliver to like dealing with this stupid tax notice I have to like sending out invoices. And you're like, I need help because I can't do all this stuff and it's not a good use of my time. So when you're hiring admin staff, 2 parts, you're giving yourself back time so that you can go do things that are more sales, more marketing, whatever, to bring more business in. Or you're hiring somebody that's more of an expert that you really shouldn't be doing that role. So if you're doing bookkeeping and you're not a bookkeeper, if you're trying to put together copy on your website, you're not a copywriter, those are all activities that you can outsource to somebody who's better at it than you. Again, it's like back to the highest and best use of your time is where you ultimately want to sit. So this admin hire is buying time, not necessarily generating revenue.
Yeah, that's so important too. That's just a valuable lesson you brought up there, is not trying to do everything yourself and hiring the best person for that, because inevitably you're going to still have to hire somebody. If you've worked on something and tried to do, I've had so many times where I've tried to do something countless times and I've screwed it up, and then I just hired somebody. I could have saved so much time and money if I just hired them in the first place.
What was that?
I was just trying to do things myself for marketing. A lot of it is like marketing stuff and testing it and just spinning my wheels and thinking that this will work, because there's no right answers for a lot of that too. There's another specific example that I got on the tip of my tongue, but it slipped away from me. I started rambling too long, so I let go of that one. But yeah, getting out of your own way is really what I was trying to say, is hiring somebody to get out of your way, even though they may not even do it as well as you too. That's the other thing, is some people get in their own way because they're afraid that this person they hire isn't going to do as good of a job as them. So that's one thing that I got in my way in this other stuff, the accounting high, and even with the tournament, I'm still trying to do everything myself. So I'm the bottleneck for things don't get done because I got to go create these new graphics or to do this new thing and send this email and to do that. So rather than just hire somebody, maybe they may not make the graphics as good as I would like or I would do. I still would be much better off. Then I would have more free time to do some other things too. So all of those little odds and ends things that you think you can just handle because it's just administrative, I'll just do it at night, burn the midnight oil. That's not healthy for anybody. That's all. It's my rant. Get out of your way.
Yeah. Something done 70% as good as you can do it is better than not getting done at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So now we're beyond the 80 50-30-20 rule. Now we're going to 70s too.
At least
70%
it's done.
is just good enough. Yeah. It's at least it's done. Yeah. You can always
Yeah.
tweak something a little bit later too. It doesn't mean
Exactly.
that you can't review the stuff that they're doing. I mean, but isn't that what ChatGPT is here for? To get us 70% of the way there first?
It definitely helps.
Yeah. Don't forget that ChatGPT could handle probably a lot of this administrative stuff too. That's
Yeah,
a
that's
whole
true.
other assistant capabilities that you have at your disposal.
I should have added that to the tips before we hire. Make sure you're leveraging technology.
Yeah. Well, that's
First and
we
foremost.
have. We had an entire episode on our app stacks, and we do talk a lot about technology. I think that it's clear our stance is if you can't have technology, do it first. First and foremost, try to automate it before you have a person replicating whatever human tasks that could be automated by a machine. Let's get the machines in there first.
Yes, that is a big point that I missed. 100%.
That's okay. So tell me something that you use ChatGPT for now, if you're using it.
Oh gosh, what did I use it for? Let me just pull it up because I know I'll have some good examples for you. Some questions that I've asked.
I ask it for personal advice sometimes.
Oh, I was thinking of doing a YouTube video, and I wanted to know like a good like common search term so my YouTube videos that I haven't been doing that many lately, but I'm starting to get people call me, like people who found me on YouTube, book sales calls from videos I did like a year ago. Yeah, so I'm like, oh, I should do more of these YouTube videos. But the ones that they're finding are like, one of them is, what does a controller do? So if someone went on search, what does a controller do? So it's all about this key search term, right, that people are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing that, we have a duplex. We were raising the rent on them. So I wanted some nice language to let them know that we're raising the rent.
Okay.
That was one that I did.
So you're having
delivering bad news to a candidate that we weren't going to go with them.
You're having it touch up your communications in marketing and just for client communications. Technically, a tenant's a client, so client communications.
That's usually wording, like trying to word something if it's like delivering bad news, because I'm bad at that.
Well, and it's so good at taking the emotion out of things. I mean, that's what we're here for. We can add the emotion to certain things, but what you want to do is take the context of the emotional aspect of that communication that you're afraid to take on and let this filter through that first. So whatever's got your block on why you can't send that email or why you can't do that, try to at least just get a first filter run through GPT just to get a temperature check on whatever this is. And then you can add your own little instances to it. If you're afraid to send that price increase to your clients, let's see what GPT has to say for you, and it could get you over yourself, get you past that.
Oh yes, I did just use it recently. So we are switching some of our smaller clients that we were just not making a good margin on to quarterly meetings instead of monthly. They just didn't need the monthly. So we freed up our capacity by changing them to quarterly meetings without raising the prices. So I had it write a little template for that, and everything went well there. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, for LinkedIn, I do not use ChatGPT though. So I post a lot on LinkedIn, and I try to keep that more like my authentic voice. I tried using it, and it just...
Yeah. You can tell because people know your voice now, and they know what's going on, and GPT doesn't know your voice, right? So any of these tools that help don't know how you talk. If you gave it a whole bunch of your posts and then you had it start recreating it and you created your voice, then it would actually still sound like you too. But I think you like to keep the authenticity, and you want it to, you want to be the one who's inserting things in there because it's coming fresh off the dome, right?
Yeah.
It's your freestyle.
Fresh off the dome.
Yeah. It's your freestyle.
I like that.
So yeah, that's your LinkedIn commentary.
Write that down. Okay, so let's wrap up here with a few strategies to protect yourself when hiring. So if you can add like a cancellation clause in your contract with the client, so either building in a guaranteed number of months that they're going to work with you, or if they cancel the contract, you have 30, 60, 90 days of it they still have to pay you for, whatever you can do. So that if a client, like let's say you get a new big client, right? And then because of that new big client, you hire somebody, and then the client says, after 2 months, they say, never mind, we're going to bring this in-house, or we're going to go do whatever. And you're like, no, because we hired somebody to service your revenue. So you have to pay us still for, 60 more days, whatever. So that's a way you can protect yourself on the back end. And then what we talked about, right? Like pre-contracting revenue before you hire that person. And then I know that we talked about in a couple episodes ago, do you really need a forecast? This is a situation where it might be nice to have a forecast. So,
Always when you're talking about hiring, that's actually what I was going to bring up earlier on, is every time we think about doing any personnel changes, that's when we go to the forecast.
Yep, same. So I have like usually at the beginning of the year, I'll create a budget. Maybe 6 months into the year, I'm actually going to hire somebody. So I'll go update it because by that time it's super stale. Just update a few numbers and then add in that person's salary ongoing, and then also update my revenue forecast. And then I can see how that impacts our profitability. But it shouldn't be a too strenuous exercise if you have somebody helping you with it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it just keeps a barometer on everything too, because then it creates something to go look back to and to check to make sure you're hitting those revenue goals at least. And things could go as expected, but you could expect the worst. You could run the scenario being extra conservative. You can also run another forecast being extra hopeful and maybe shoot for something in the middle.
Yep. And there may be some situations where you are investing in, like you're willing to you want to grow quicker, or you're betting on yourself that you're going to be able to bring in revenue to cover this person, but you're willing to not take a salary for 6 months. I don't know, everyone has their own personal risk profile, and also everyone has different access to capital, possibly outside their business. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is if you are in debt, do not hire an employee or spend money on marketing.
Whoa, that's a pretty big statement to come in at the end here. So if you are in excessive debt, don't do anything extra, pay off the debt first. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
You got to have a positive cash flow business first. So I get this, and I like this. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a foundational mindset. So that goes back to the zero line that we were talking about, making sure that you have enough cash reserves to even be able to afford this. And in order to get your cash reserves up, those cash reserves should be depleted to just pay off the debt.
Well, when you think about and those cash reserves, really, you could net those with your debt, right? Because you shouldn't be, it goes when we talked about in episode 1, don't grow a crappy business. If you are in debt, hiring people is not good. Don't leverage. Yeah, you're leveraging. Yeah.
And you have nothing to leverage if your business isn't cash flow. You're leveraging debt for more debt and this person's going to cost you more money anyway in the beginning stages. So again, all of these are just like red lights before you should hire. So that's all this whole thing has been a bunch of red lights on what it takes to really be able to make that next hire. And if you've made it past go and collect your $200, then you can go hire.
Then you can drive your car forward with those new tires you got.
Look at that. We're just rolling in the dough. We're rolling in the analogies and the metaphors with the cars here. We're going to speed this up to the finish line here too, so we don't waste anybody else's time. Nix, I love this. A lot of this came fresh off the dome, but all of the things that we discussed here are very important as far as what it's going to take for that next hire and about what it's going to cost you mentally and financially.
You got it.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Peace out,
Scotty.
homies.
I'll see you next time.
Yeah. So you're drowning in cash flow issues. You run a business, but feel like it's running you. Customers won't pay, but you got bills due. It appears you won't have enough for payroll coming up soon. It seems like you're running nowhere fast. You work hard, but never able to withdraw cash from the business. You get more customers, hire more employees, but still take home hardly anything. You feel like you're on a hamster wheel, frustrated cause the battle's always uphill. Even though you got a bookkeeper on your team, they send you reports, but you don't really know what they mean. Your CPA doesn't understand a thing about your business, at least that's how it seems. But if you want to get above water and grow, check out the Cashflow Show. This is the Cashflow Show, where we help the small business gain momentum and become profitable. This is the Cashflow Show. Listen and learn. We'll show you how to pay yourself on what your business earns. discuss topics like getting paid on time, profitability, and managing your bottom line, payroll best practices, the best apps to use, and cash flow forecasting tools. So if you're a small business owner, your help's right around the corner. Fret not. Tune in as Scott and Nikole help you reach your goals on the Cashflow Show. The Cashflow Show, where we help the small business gain momentum and become profitable. This is the Cashflow Show. Listen and learn. We'll show you how to pay yourself on what your business earns. Cashflow Show. Our advice will take you far. Cashflow Show. Tune in with Nikole and OKR.